All right. We'll start early just so another guy can go lift his stuff. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Tucker Tuesday. What's going on out there, chat? Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's having a lovely day out there today. And we have a Sin talk about the shit. It's hella funny. The M shit. The M. Okay. What's going on, chat? How we doing out there? I am once again asking all of my lovely viewers who are in the McKinley Club, please reach out to me so I can cross-reference my list with the current sitting one, because we are just about ready to send the packages out. I just got the mailers in the mail today. So even if you have confirmed to me, I'm asking you once more to just reach out to me and just so I can cross-reference. I need to cross-reference. I ignore the M&M crap, just devour the candy. I don't like candy. I got fat off cheeseburgers, not candy. So I'm pretty good on talking about M&Ms. I like, if we're going down the M&M route, S-tier, top-of-the-line M&Ms are the little mini ones, and I will explain no further. It's just a fact. It's just a fact, and we will not argue it. Stop what you're doing and talk about something. All right. I could talk about nothing. If you guys have the time and you're down for a long, pointless show, I can talk about nothing for like 3 hours. I am very talented at just meandering and blathering for nothing, no purpose at all. I could talk about plans I have. Like tomorrow, I have a friend coming over, and I got backlights for the bar, little LED strips. That was a hassle and a half getting the correct ones. But yeah, I'm putting those up. I have soft, warm white LEDs for the backlit bottles, and I have RGB LEDs for the back of the stuff. Just a little boost in production value. I probably shouldn't have spent the money on it, but it's like $100, and it's a huge boost in production value and makes everything look nicer. So we're gonna roll with it. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. Minis are good, but I go through them all in 30 seconds. We'll eat slower. Oh boy, how we doing out there, chat? What's going on? Oh man, I am very excited. I'm very, very excited to send out these McKinley packages. These McKinley Club packages are shaping up really nice. We have an extra we have an extra thing for them now. These are gonna be super duper nice. I cannot wait to send them out. They're really nice. They're really cool. Sinatra, and I like chocolate chips. Chocolate chips are good. Chocolate chips are very good. Yeah, I got the mailers right behind me. My mom wants to take me and my younger brother and daughter out to dinner this weekend. That would be fun. That would be fun. And if people are out there going, what the hell is the McKinley Club? What is that? How do I get a package? I want to get a package. Well, let me explain. The McKinley Club is it's half off Comic Club. So instead of a stack, you don't get a song, nothing like that. But you get a package that'll be sent out later this week with custom, only available to McKinley Club members, coasters, magnets, stickers. And they're all nice. They're all really nice. So that's a package we're going to get ready to ship out this week. I assume that Miss Sin will customize each outgoing package with her stickers, as is her swag to do so. Awoo, werewolves of London. Hello, Lamented Guide. What's going on, buddy? You don't have a wrench, my Stacker Club member. And mod. Bang. Ay, 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 ay. Good, I'm not that late. Good, because I'm still sitting here bullshitting. But, like I said, if you are thinking about joining the McKinley Club, that's how. And the Stacker Club. We have the next package just about worked out for the Stacker Club. So hopefully, March, those will be getting sent out. I would like to do March. Yeah, I think March would be good. We're going to have a fizz glass. We're going to have a fizz glass custom. That's one more step to the overall glass collection from the Sinatra Says Comic Club. We got cool shit. We got cool shit if you want to join. But failing that, we have amazing donations listed down below. A whole bunch of new ones if you feel like just supporting, which is fantastic. Especially right now, because it's greatly appreciated. I know things are tight. I know things are tight, and that's okay. But if you want to support, that's exactly how you do it. If you cannot monetarily support, please smash the like button. Share it out on your social media, and make sure you are over there on the Silent Sin channel. Make sure you are over and watching on the Silent Sin channel. That's where all the cool kids are hanging out. And you know what? We're just going to quit the meandering. Smash a like, share it out, go to the Silent Sin. If you feel like supporting, Streamlabs listed down below with a whole myriad of donations. And we're just going to get to.
Looks like Sam Bankman-Fried committed the largest financial fraud in modern history, but he's not in prison. He didn't trespass in the Capitol. What's interesting is that you are not allowed to...
But that's okay. It's okay that he did it because he donates to Democrats. So it's okay
to know the identity of the two people who helped put up Sam Bankman-Fried's bond. His lawyers even argued in court to keep the names masked to shield them from public criticism. Now, the media outlets who took a ton of money from Sam Bankman-Fried, like Semaphore, haven't yet returned the money, that's stolen money, they don't seem very interested in how this has happened. Well, we are interested. We just finished it up.
I'm very interested. I want to know who the hell had 25 mil just to put up.
Documentary, in fact, called Scam Bankman Fraud, The Story of FTX. It's out on Thursday on Fox Nation. Here's a preview. One of his strategies was to clutter his sentences with technocratic jargon so no one could really understand what he was saying.
Alameda did have a big position open on FTX. That position, I think, was very over collateralized a year ago. There was a total market collapse, and specifically a large correlated collapse in its assets over the last month.
Always the soy voice, always the lisp. I'm not saying I believe in phrenology, but sometimes.
I am no cryptocurrency expert, I'm no finance expert, but I don't think you answered my question.
The technocratic jargon is itself part of the smokescreen too. I have a general rule of thumb. If you cannot explain it to a 14-year-old, that means either you don't understand it yourself, or you do understand it and you're trying to confuse the audience for a reason that has to do with your own self-interested gain.
I mean, that's a fact.
Mr. Bankman-Fried has been able to confuse interviewers by talking in circles.
Nothing that SBF has said since the fraud was exposed has been coherent to even...
What's this dude's name?
Nothing that SBF has said...
Ramaswamy.
Since the fraud was exposed, has been coherent even to this sophisticated observer of financial markets. And I think that that's not just an accident, it is by design. It is another deflection tactic.
I don't know how this... Why is nobody curious about who the hell just had $25 million?
So the man you just saw in that clip is one of the people who acted as a Sherpa for us as we tried to understand what was happening with Sam Bankman-Fried. It's Vivek Ramaswamy, a frequent guest on the show, executive chairman of Strive Asset Management. He joins us in studio tonight. Vivek, thanks so much for coming on. I loved your point, and I think it's one of the truest guides to other people's talking. But tell me why Sam Bankman-Fried seems to be treated so much more gently than your average criminal defendant.
Well, it's because he had the entire deflection tactic set up, and it wasn't just the jargon. It was the ESG smokescreen. It was the good guy who was engaged in effective altruism, funding Democratic candidates. He knew how to play the game to be.
And I like how a lot of media outlets called him a and I quote, prolific Republican donor, when he was definitely 150% a Democrat donor. Like, there's no two ways about it.
Able to create the appearance that he cared about something other than profit and power, when in fact he cared only about more profit and power for himself. But the thing that was most striking to me about the story, Tucker, is not how this is some sort of deviant who's so different than how the rest of Wall Street operates, but how familiar his story really is. It is the same story as we saw back in 2008. I think there are a lot of similarities. It's going to make a lot of people mad to hear this. There's a lot of similarities to what those ESG promoting financial institutions do today. Because what did SBF do? He took client funds without their permission and used it to advance his agenda without telling them. Guess what the largest financial institutions in the world are doing today? They're using somebody else's money without their permission to advance their own agendas. And so what I find most fascinating about the story isn't this one guy with curly hair who's 30 years old that was worth a lot of money and now isn't. That's just a detail. I think it's an interesting moment for everyone to look in the mirror who's in Wall Street and everywhere else and ask themselves how dissimilar his story really is to what even mainstream actors in financial markets have been doing since 2008.
It's a wise point. I mean, these are people who are motivated by a lot of things, but one of them is.
I'm curious, how did he get the capital to put up to start this business? I want to know, and I have no right to know this, by the way, but I want to know everything, every dirty secret that this mother effer has. Hammond Bean shilling the Streamlabs link. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated.
It's a desire to.
You guys want to use it? You know how.
Accumulate as much money as possible. We know that it's fine. But we have regulators who are supposed to keep that within the bounds, like Gary Gensler. Where are they?
They're busy focused on advancing those same.
Now, is it just me, or is there two separate microphones picking this dude up? Because I hear it for a second.
Agendas, right? Why are they propagating ESG disclosure rules when in fact they should be focused on preventing people from losing money, right? You would think this was an objective. And the irony is they're going to use this as a catalyst to say, well, now we need to have greater purview over regulating cryptocurrencies or whatever, when in fact this is just a managerial class that's advancing a political agenda. And the more you advance a political agenda, the less you're doing the job that you're actually supposed to do. And you know it well, Tucker, that is the story of the administrative state, the SEC included, as we know it.
So just really quick, if it is true that what Sam Bankman-Fried did is not so different from what a lot of people are doing right now.
The spaz isn't going to spend a day in jail. He's too well connected. Of course not. Of course he won't. And anyone who thinks he is just not paying attention. SBF will never stay behind the bars of a cell. It's just not going to happen. Thank you, Call to Grill. Much appreciated.
Now, are you concerned about the stability of our financial system?
So look, I've had concerns dating back to 2008. The thing that we didn't let happen in this country, Tucker, was when those banks actually erred back then, we should have let them fall and actually teach this system.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think bailing the banks out was a huge mistake. They're the ones who put themselves in the mess, and you don't see them bailing out small businesses ever, period.
Lesson. Instead, the lesson we taught was the worse you act, the more likely you are to get bailed out by the system.
Totally right.
SBF was a young guy. That's the system he grew up. What else do you expect but a next generation of fraudsters do the same thing a decade and a half later?
And clearly his parent.
Fantastic. Thank you, Derek LaRue. Guys, Attell he's been sitting as Dream Boss for about 3 weeks now. You guys are definitely chipping away at him. He could be overthrown. It is very possible you guys could overthrow the sitting stream boss. It was me. I bailed out Sam Bankman-Fried. He didn't do nothing. Thank you, Jeffrey Epstein.
Let's encourage this. I mean, you can just imagine this kid pulling the same scam at 13. You know,
Yeah,
oh, isn't he cute? He's so smart. Okay. Vivek, great to see you. Thank you for your very crisp analysis. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens. So you may have seen this video, an Amazon delivery driver in Apple Valley, California, dropping off packages.
I did not see this video.
When he steps and falls inside a septic tank. It happened.
Whoa, where was this?
Seen this video, an Amazon delivery driver in Apple Valley, California, dropping.
Of course it's California. Why wouldn't it be California?
Off packages when he steps and falls inside a septic tank. It happened last week. While he was stuck, the driver uploaded this video.
It's so delivering to this customer's house, and I just fell into a septic tank. I don't know if they were digging it or what, but I walked by it and the ground came out underneath me. I'm like 6 feet down, and I tried using these roots around me to get out, and it just pulled more dirt on top of me. So I just called dispatch. Hopefully they're gonna get the cops or the fire department here, because I definitely don't want to try to climb out on my own again, because like I said, the walls are kind of caving in on me. A little bit scary.
What would you even do? What would you even do? Like, how do you get out of that? I'm a strong guy, but I don't think I could, like, I don't think you can just, like, finger hold your way out of that one.
So the fire department did come and rescue that man. And here's the thing. At a moment when people are dismissing American workers as lazy or disengaged, that man took a shower and then continued his route. And we were very impressed with that. In fact, we gave him the Employee of the Month honors, and then we found...
Wow, he went back to work? I would call it a day. I'd call it a day at that point. But then again, he does work for Amazon, so he'd probably, like, get arrested for not finishing his shift.
Found him. His name is Charles Amicangelo. He joins us tonight. Charles, I'm so impressed with this. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
You
Tucker.
fell into this like a tiger trap without seeing it? Is that correct?
No, actually, I did see the hole. I walked by it on my way to deliver a package, and then I walked by it again on my way back to my vehicle. And the ground next to the hole is what collapsed underneath me. Even though I kept a bit of a distance from the hole, I still managed to fall in because of the ground collapsing under my feet. And also, I wanted to let you know the fire department confirmed with me the drop wasn't 6 feet, it was actually 13 feet.
Whew.
That's unbelievable.
It's probably it's 6 feet above his head, probably.
So, I mean, I'm sure you see all kinds of things on your route every day. I mean, it's, you know, famously a pretty interesting job. Weird people, dogs. Have you ever fallen into a deep hole before?
This is not something I would have ever imagined happen, no, Tucker. And I don't think other delivery drivers would have either.
Your coolness under pressure inspires the rest of us, but also your commitment to your job. I mean, once you fall into a 13-foot septic hole, I mean, you kind of deserve the day off. I mean, people take holidays off I've never heard of before. Did you consider just calling it a day and having a beer?
I did consider it. You know, I think there was several things that caused me to decide to go ahead and finish the route. And, you know,
I guarantee it's because Jeff Bezos would have had him assassinated from orbit. And you know what? I'll throw this out there. Something we haven't done in a while. If we can fill the bar, we can get... You know what? You know what that is.
it was probably, I was on a good adrenaline rush. You know, my time in the Marine Corps, you know, as a Marine, you know, we're conditioned to always accomplish our mission, you know, so that was going through my head. But another big thing is that had I not completed my route, or attempted to at least, other drivers who had already been out there and done their entire routes would get stuck having to finish my route, and I just didn't think that would be fair to them either.
Well, it's not fair to you to fall in a freaking hole and continue on your workday. That's not fair, but you did it.
But I did voluntarily offer to take my route, so...
I hope you're rewarded for it. You certainly have our admiration for it. Charles and Michelangelo, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Tucker.
So impressive. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly open.
I don't want to.
So the former NBA player Enes Kanter Freedom was in Rome recently when he learned from the FBI that he needed to come back to the U.S. immediately. He was told that the Turkish government had put a bounty on his head. Freedom grew up in Turkey before coming to the United States and changing his name in honor of this country. He's been critical.
Is anybody surprised that Turkey is now trying to take out American citizens? Oh, I'm shocked. So shocked.
Of the Turkish government. Enes Kanter Freedom joins us tonight. Thanks so much for coming on. So the Turkish government, you were informed, but the U.S. government has put a bounty on your head, $500,000 bounty. What does that mean, a bounty on your head?
Where's he at?
So, first of all, thank you for having me, Mr. Carlson. I was doing a basketball camp in Vatican, actually, for, Christians, Catholic, Muslim, and Jewish kids. And I heard the news for the first time. And I got in touch with FBI immediately, and they said, come back to America at this moment. So I took a flight the next day. And so, this is the first time actually the Turkish government put in a bounty on my head and put me in a most wanted terrorist list. Just because I talk about some of the human rights violations and political prisoners happening in Turkey. And, I'm not the only one. There are so many.
Why are you even remotely shocked about this? Why are you even remotely shocked? Of course they're going to get you for that shit. What'd you expect?
Many journalists, academics, professors, and celebrities are on that list. And when I had a conversation with my friends on the ground, they said the mafia, the serial killers, actually, professional hitmen and cartel could be after my case. And I was like speechless. I was like, this cannot be happening to an American citizen in U.S. soil.
Do you feel like the U.S. government is helping to protect you from this threat from a foreign government?
Really good question. Some of the members of the Congress actually reacting to this news and asking Biden administration to speak up and actually take some actions, because I remember first time President Biden, before he took to office, actually, the first thing he said, the problem in Middle East is Erdogan and we need to do something about it. And it's been almost 2 years and he has not done a thing yet. So we have to prioritize human rights. And because Turkey plays a very important role, because it could have been the bridge of Islam and West, but just because of there is.
I don't think that bridge exists, honestly.
Hey guys, as it is a talking skill. It's ready. And I'm going to be stepping on that for you guys.
No way, it's too dangerous.
So I'm currently not wearing any pants.
572.4 pounds.
572.4. Oh.
Dark matter for 572. Hey, Sin, been a while since I donated. This one's for you. Cheers. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. Knocking us up over 10% to goal. Thank you very much.
Freedom of speech,
I hope everything is well.
There are so many political prisoners and innocent people are in the jail waiting for help. It is not possible. So
I don't know if I finished my statement, so I'm going to try it again. There is no bridge between Islam and the West. The two things are just completely incompatible. They just are.
I'm asking, please, Biden administration to take some solid actions and help my friends over there, help my family over there. I haven't seen them almost 10 years.
Well, if they're okay with Chinese genocide, I doubt they're going to be too upset about Erdogan, but that's just a guess. Hope I'm wrong. Enes Kanter Freedom, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to
Fuck off,
subscribe
Hannity.
to Fox.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Sheila Jackson Lee is famous in Washington for being the single most obnoxious member of Congress.
I don't know about that one.
Now, that's a title that, as you can imagine, has many contenders. But Sheila Jackson Lee stands alone. Don't you know who I am? She once screamed at a flight attendant in the first-class cabin on a continental.
I remember that. No, and nobody inside your district should either.
Flight. I am Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Where is my seafood meal? In the 1990s, during a visit to NASA, Sheila Jackson Lee demanded to see the flag that astronauts had planted on Mars. When gently informed that no human being has ever been to Mars because it's very far away, Lee flew into a
It is a little bit far away.
rage. She accused NASA of racism and pointed out her membership on the, quote, Science Committee in Congress, and so on. We could spend the entire hour on Sheila Jackson Lee stories, and it's tempting. On Capitol Hill, she's known as the Queen, and not in a good way. But what's interesting is that nobody ever talks about the congressional district that Sheila Jackson Lee supposedly represents. It's mostly inner-city Houston, and it could use some help. Lee's district has a poverty rate almost twice the national average, with all the usual markers of civilizational decline: high crime, bad schools, low social cohesion, drugs. Now, Lee has, quote, served in Congress for nearly 30 years, but it's hard to think of a single thing she has ever done to improve the lives of the people who elected her. She doesn't seem interested. Instead, Sheila Jackson Lee has devoted her entire political career, indeed her entire life, to a single cause: shrieking about white racism. That's what she...
Ah, yes, that is clearly, easily the most popular and quickest way to become rich.
Sheila Jackson Lee does for a living. Here's a selection.
Institutional racism and systemic racism taints and spoils the way that America treats, in one instance, African Americans, and other instances, minorities.
The dastardly impacts of white nationalism, white supremacy, and outright racism. Racism is a national security threat.
Race.
I don't know what to do with this.
Racism is a national security threat.
Racism is a national security threat.
Institutional racism does exist, and until we accept that, we will not finish our job. We will not elect a chief bigot of the United States of America.
This just has to be the quickest way to get people to pay attention to you, right? Like, I genuinely don't understand why you would get out there and say the same thing over and over and over. It make it no sense. It make it no sense.
Our system is such that it then allows Americans, people, to act in instances in a racist manner.
Racism, you see, is a national security threat. It's a national security threat. Really, Sheila Jackson Lee? Tell us how racism is a national security threat. Speak slowly. We've got plenty of time.
I'm sorry. And moreover, let us know what racism you're talking about, because this is another one of the reasons why I say that the demand for racism way outweighs the supply of it.
But of course she won't do that. She's got no argument. She's got no facts. She doesn't even have a sincere belief in what she's saying. It's absurd, and she knows it. And by the way, Sheila Jackson Lee doesn't want to protect a country she despises from national security threats. Why would she want to do that? No, that's not the point. What she's doing here every day is leveling a racial attack, a blood libel against an entire group of Americans, while simultaneously pretending to be the victim of attacks from that same group. Stop hitting me, she howls as she punches you in the face. It's such a common tactic at this point, used constantly by Al Sharpton, by the ADL, by...
If racism were such a big issue, you wouldn't need to talk about it all the time. Same thing with COVID. If it were as bad as people made it out to be, we wouldn't need the propaganda that we have coming out now. This just makes sense to me. I don't know how anybody but us can see it, honestly.
So many others that you may not even notice it anymore. But it's still disgusting, it's still immoral, it's still divisive. Here's Joe Biden doing it.
And finally, we're confronting the stains of what remains the deep stain in the soul of the nation: hate and white supremacy. You know, there's a tough through line of subjugation and enslaved people from our earliest days to the reigns of radicalized terror, the KKK, to Dr. King being assassinated.
Dr. King was assassinated by a registered Democrat. I'm so over arguing about this. But I know that a toe is about to dip under 500,000 HP.
A violent, deadly insurrection on the Capitol 9 months ago. It was about white supremacy, in my view.
Speaking of blood libel, because that's what it is, Protesting the 2020 election results is the same as slavery, as the KKK. It's the same as murdering Martin Luther King. It's all white supremacy, declares Joe Biden without defining the term. Now, you may recall when Joe Biden said that. You probably dismissed it at the time as ridiculous, as the rantings of a senile partisan, and of course that's what it was. But you should also keep in mind that Joe Biden did not say that by accident. It wasn't an ad lib, off the cuff. No, his staff signed off on that speech. They wrote it, they read it before he read it. And they wrote it for a reason. When the President of the United States identifies a threat to this country, his many federal agencies, the biggest in the world, swing into action to neutralize that threat. That's how the system works.
Yeah, if there was an actual threat, you cannot neutralize an idea no matter how much they try.
As Joe Biden's staff well knows. So, in fact, when Joe Biden likens you to Al-Qaeda or the Klan, it's not a small thing at all. It has implications. So here's Sheila Jackson Lee from last week in a not unrelated clip calling for the renewal of the Patriot Act. Watch.
I remember after 9/11 when we all worked together to ensure the protection of the American.
This is what it ultimately comes down to, usually. Give us more power. None of these issues that are talked about... okay, let me rephrase that a little bit. None of these issues that they talk about have an answer that is not give us more money or more power. That's it.
American people through the Patriot Act and dealing with the FISA courts. We work together because truth is important.
Now, that's kind of strange if you think about it. So why would Sheila Jackson Lee, a self-described liberal, find herself last week praising the secret government courts that liberals once opposed passionately on the grounds that those courts could be used to destroy the constitutional rights of Americans without anyone knowing about it? Secret courts? Liberals were against secret courts, and now the chief liberal in Congress is strongly for secret courts. What's going on here? Why? Well, because those secret courts turn out to be a highly effective way to silence the critics of the Democratic Party, to silence those so-called white supremacists Joe Biden's always yelling about.
This is racism, but not that kind of racism with extra steps, exactly.
Not all of whom, by the way, are white. You don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. You just have to oppose the agenda. And, of course, Sheila Jackson Lee knows that very well, and that's why she wants to renew the Patriot Act indefinitely. And there are enough dumb Republicans that she may...
Give us more money, give us more power, give us more surveillance. Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Be able to. But Sheila Jackson would like to go a lot further than that. Lee has just introduced a bill called the Leading Against White Supremacy Act of 2023. Now, it's not an exaggeration to say this single bill would do more to criminalize speech, previously constitutionally guaranteed speech, than any other piece of legislation that has been proposed in the entire history of this country. That's not an overstatement at all, and to prove it, we're going to read directly from the bill. Here it is, quote, "A conspiracy to engage in white supremacy-inspired hate crime shall be determined to exist between two or more persons, at least one of whom published material advancing white supremacy, white supremacist ideology, antagonism based on, quote, replacement theory, or..."
But they themselves say that that's what they're doing. So again, this is an issue that it's okay for Democrats to push forward and to pursue, but if Republicans talk about it, it's suddenly bad.
Or hate speech that vilifies or is otherwise directed against any non-white person or group, end quote. Now, nowhere in the legislation is the term white supremacy or white supremacist ideology ever defined. Of course it's never defined. It's left open. It's subjective. Anything can be white supremacy. But
the extreme, definite white supremacy.
The bill does specifically point to something called replacement theory, white supremacist ideology. If you engage in either one of them, you go to federal prison, possibly for a very long time.
You can come and get me.
So all that's required under this piece of legislation, which has not been laughed out of Congress yet, all that's required is that your political opinions, quote, could, as determined by a reasonable person, motivate actions by a person predisposed to engaging in a white supremacy-inspired hate crime. So what would qualify as a felony under this law? Well, virtually everything, but among them would be pointing out that Democratic Party politicians, including Chuck Schumer, the leading Senate Democrat, have long bragged that they are flooding this country with immigrants in order to change the demography to maintain political power for themselves. They've said that many times, they've written it, they've bragged about it on camera, but if you notice it under this bill, you would be criminally responsible for the violent acts of people you have never met.
And if you talk about it, that's even worse. That's worse.
And you would go to jail for terrorism.
Oh, darn.
Now, what's most interesting about this bill is that it's race specific. Nothing in Sheila Jackson Lee's legislation would apply to, say, black supremacy or murder sprees by people who aren't white supremacists. The massacre in Waukesha, for example. So that means that Democratic Party politicians can continue to say whatever they want with impunity. The First Amendment still applies to them, but not to anyone who doesn't vote for them. So that's the definition of tyranny. It's horrifying. It's a direct attack on the Bill of Rights, on our core freedoms guaranteed by the U.S. government for 250 years. We shouldn't be surprised by this, however, because it's consistent with what Biden has promised since the day he got into office. And the promise was that race-blind justice, which is the entire foundation of the rule of law in the West, has been for centuries, is done. The new model, South Africa. That's the new model, South Africa, a country we never talk about because no one wants to admit what's happened there over the past 29 years. But on the basis of that, Biden tried to allocate farm aid on the basis of skin color. A federal judge blocked that plan, but it has not stopped the Democratic Party because no one's repudiated the idea. No one on the right has been brave enough to say, no, the federal government can never award or punish on the basis of skin color. That is immoral and is contrary to American law.
It is, but again, it is immoral and it's contrary, but if you're doing it in the right direction, it's okay and can be overlooked.
And because no one has said that, Democrats, including Sheila Jackson Lee, have decided that their opponents are terrorists.
Boys.
And they're terrorists because of their
Look what I
race.
got here. Hey, where are the white women at?
This dono is the only proof you'll ever need that Sin's a raging racist. Love you, Sin, no homo. That's true. That is true. I love that donation so much. I want every single racist and anti-racist advocate who's a raging racist themselves. They all just need to sit down and everyone needs to watch Blazing Saddles. That's all it comes down to. You need to watch Blazing Saddles. If you're racist, you haven't seen Blazing Saddles yet. That's all it is.
Are terrorists, and they're terrorists because of their race. And once you're a terrorist, what do we get to do? We get to take all your stuff.
And thank you, Faustonia, knocking us up right over that 20% to goal, guys.
We get to seize your assets. It shouldn't surprise you that is actually unfolding in the state of California. Always the leading edge of lunacy. Watch this.
These economists have worked alongside us over this past year to come up with potential estimates for what reparations in the form of compensation or cash payments can look like for African Americans.
I'll take some reparations. I'm poor as shit. Let's go.
That $500 billion number represents the state of California's maximum culpability for racist redlining practices. And that number represents the state of California's maximum liability. It is not a final recommendation coming out of the task force. Final recommendations do not come out until July 1 of 2023.
No, everything about this, of course, is bad and wrong, not just in practice, but in principle. But in practice, it sets up an incentive that the whole country is going to have to grapple with fairly soon. We've already been told that you can change your sex, your immutable characteristic, just by wishing it so. Men can become women, women can become men. Why then can't people change their race? That's a sincere question that is waved away as ridiculous, but it's not any more ridiculous.
No, that is a solid question.
Than changing your sex. In fact, it's the same. So under laws like this, there's a huge incentive to change your race because you get paid for doing that. What are we going to do about that? But what's interesting and sadly predictable is that as politicians in California and the rest of the country decide how they're going to loot the treasury in the name of racial justice, the communities they supposedly serve are falling apart in real, tangible, measurable
Yeah, I'll let him.
ways. People are dying. Axios, for example, reports that carjackings in D.C. have risen for the 5th straight year. Ask anyone who lives there. Ask the D.C. council candidate who was carjacked in broad daylight a year ago.
A vehicle stolen Friday may be linked to multiple crimes in Northeast, including the murder of 19-year-old Devin Brewer. There was a drive-by shooting on Central Avenue Northeast. Both victims survived. A lookout for the same Highlander went out over police radio. The plates on the car appear to match the burgundy Highlander used to carjack a D.C. council candidate at gunpoint. Nate Fleming was at a gas station on Nanny Helen Burroughs Avenue Northeast. He says when the suspect pulled a gun, he gave up the keys, then went into the convenience store to call 911. He says one of the guys came in to stop him from doing that, chasing him out of the store.
How are people just okay with this? How do we not have more sidewalk ornaments?
So instead of doing anything about that, in D.C., the leaders are doing what Sheila Jackson Lee does, shrieking about white racism, as if that's the problem or even a related problem. Of course, it has nothing to do with carjackings. As for actual carjackings that are killing people, making taxpayers leave D.C., terrifying everyone in the city, well, the D.C. City Council has just passed a bill that will lighten the punishment for carjacking, as well as other violent crimes. So here's what you have. At the same time that Sheila Jackson Lee would like to make it a, quote, hate crime, a felony for disagreeing with her, her compatriots in D.C. and across the country are making it easier for you to get killed by an actual carjacker. Anarcho-tyranny is the name of that system, and it's spreading because no one's saying anything about it.
Okay, why don't we just finish out the sentence and just go for full anarchism? I feel like we'd be better off than the shit we're doing now.
Happy.
Oh, I'm going to check that ratio right now. Right now, 71 watching on Sinatra screams, 36 likes. The fuck? 36 likes, you shit heels. Smash the like button. Over on the Silent Sin, we have 150 watching and 96 likes. What is the matter with you guys? Smash that like button. Share it out on your social media. Make sure you go over to the Silent Sin channel. And if you feel so inclined, please do hit up the Streamlabs. We are right there on our way to the goal. We are over 20% to the goal. A Witcher or a Final Flash would be another 20% to the goal if you guys feel like supporting. I already said all the stuff about the new songs and the McKinley Club packages going out later this week. You guys know all that. So just like, share, and if you feel like supporting, it's greatly appreciated.
Wednesday, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight.
Oh, and if you're not on Patreon, make sure you consider joining Patreon at $5 or above for early access to videos.
If you've been paying attention for the past 5 or 6 years, and we know you have been, you've probably noticed the inverted nature of modern language. Pretty much everything is precisely the opposite of what they claim it is. So the people who tell you they're defending democracy are promoting authoritarianism, which is not democracy. Then the Black Lives Matter movement winds up killing black people. Who would have seen that coming?
Just a
then
few
our public
dozen.
health authorities make the population sicker.
Just a few dozen in the Summer of Love.
And this is our new favorite, the so-called World Economic Forum seems to exist to destroy national economies. Not an overstatement. It was the WEF, keep in mind, that told the government of Sri Lanka to give up modern fertilizer. Oh, good plan, guys. Go ahead and try it. Result? The country collapsed and people starved. Then it was the WEF that promoted...
Once you, oh, I forgot the WEF promoted FTX. Interesting. Once you start having starving citizens en masse, then you really start to have a problem.
Sam Bankman-Fried's historic Ponzi, the biggest financial fraud in history. Apparently the savants at the World Economic Forum just couldn't tell that this twitchy, pill-popping kid in cargo shorts who literally played video games during interviews, was an utterly transparent scammer. They had no idea. They thought he was a genius, just like them. And of course, it was the WEF that predicted the COVID lockdowns would, quote, quietly improve cities, not turn them into ominous hellscapes of unemployment, drug addiction, and crime. It seemed like a good plan at the time. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's prevent people from working. That'll make them rich. It'll quietly improve life for everyone.
Yeah, you got to stay home for 2 months, but here's enough bills for about a week and a half.
That's the World Economic Forum for you. The WEF is often described as a group of supervillains, but they're also hilariously idiotic. Not just evil, buffoonish. And by the way, they know it. They're smart enough to be embarrassed anyway. The WEF has since deleted its tweet about COVID lockdowns. It has memory hold its promotion of scammer Sam Bankman-Fried.
Do these people think that if they delete a tweet that it just didn't happen? It just never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
It has conveniently forgotten all about its guidance on Sri Lankan fertilizer, on which it turns out the WEF is not an expert. None of that ever happened. The slate is clean. So we're ready for yet another World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, which is underway right now. The event kicked off this week with 84-year-old Klaus Schwab, he's the founder of the WEF, promising to, quote, master the future.
We couldn't meet at a more challenging time. We are confronted with so many crises simultaneously. What does it need to master the future? I think
this is some X-Files shit. This is the dude that the smoking man got his orders from.
To have a platform where all stakeholders of global society are engaged.
We must master the future. Masters
are engaged.
We must master the future. Master the future. So master in the future is now the top item on the to-do list at the World Economic Forum this year. That's the first clue. These people are not living the same life you are. By the end of this week, you hope to find some time to get an oil change or maybe pick up some dandruff shampoo at Rite Aid. At the World Economic Forum, they plan to master the future. That's the kind of people they are. How are they going to do it, by the way? Well, they're going to do it with John.
Yeah, I have to go dono. I refuse to make new donos if some are still hidden. I have to go register my car for this year, $130 for the year. And I have to go to the post office this week. I'm not really worried about mastering the future.
Carrie, who despite physical appearances is still alive. Kerry will be 80 years old this year, so it goes without saying that if he's going to master the future, he'd better hurry. Thankfully, he's got a plan. Watch.
It's pretty extraordinary that we, select group of human beings, because of whatever touched us at some point in our lives, are able to sit in a room and come together and actually talk about saving the planet. I mean, it's so almost extraterrestrial to think about, quote, saving the planet. And if you said that to most people, they think you're just a crazy tree-hugging, lefty, liberal, do-gooder, whatever, and there's no relationship. But really, that's where we are.
So, most people don't understand, but we are a select group of human beings, John Kerry tells the attendees of the World Economic Forum, who honestly did not need to be reminded of that. People may say...
I mean, it's literally Bond villainry. It's Bond villainry right in front of our faces and saying, hey, you better not talk about this.
We're crazy, tree-hugging, liberal do-gooders, but we know the truth, which is that actually we're soulless, greed-head money worshippers who'd sell our own children to China for a big enough tax credit. Shout out to you, Larry Fink, in the third row. Catch you at the sushi bar. That was John Kerry's message at the World Economic Forum, which is also effectively the WEF's credo. But then John Kerry went further. What we're doing today, he said, in saving the planet is almost, quote, extraterrestrial. In other words, if you ever suspected these people are freaking aliens, it turns out you're right. They are. And as if to prove it, Al Gore himself showed up. At 74 years old, Al Gore is as awkward, synthetic, and weird as he has ever been since 8th grade to now. Though at this point, he's much, much richer thanks to Google stock. Ever notice how the richer people get, the more they seem like Bill Gates? It's not your imagination. Al Gore single-handedly proves that theory. Here he was today.
Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about a billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world. We have to act.
How high is his blood pressure? Like, that shit's got to be insane.
Always angry, always shouting. Fatter but still grumpy. They're climate refugees now. They're climate refugees, millions of them. They're not economic migrants fleeing the squalor of Tegucigalpa for the generous social services of El Paso. No, they're not. They're climate refugees who have no choice but to risk their lives with coyotes because you drive a full-size Silverado. Illegal.
And, yeah, I'm not getting rid of it. I like my Silverado. My Silverado is a great truck, and it works very well.
Immigration is your fault, Middle America. It's not our fault. We got nothing to do with it. We just run the world. If this is all starting to sound like a bad CNN segment to you, a parade of self-confident dumb people, rich in self-esteem, low in wisdom, giving moralizing lectures to one another's applause, well, let us confirm that for you. Where was Don Lemon? Why wasn't he there? Well, he wasn't. That's on next year's program, no doubt. This year, we're not making this up, America's favorite...
You have a new 110 donation? No. It's still the same badass one that Fake Gamer Cat really wants to see, I am sure.
Favorite unemployed media critic, Mr. Brian Stelter, ladies and gentlemen. Watch.
The clear and present danger of disinformation is our conversation here this afternoon.
Speaking of getting fatter.
It follows a session just now about disrupting distrust. And of course, those are connected. So I hope that's where we can start. I'm Brian Stelter, formerly of CNN, now a fellow at Harvard University. A reminder that the hashtag is WEF23. We can try to put some real information out into the world to make up for...
What's the one for this? $19.99 for the greatest Brian Stelter donation ever?
For all the crazy.
Make up for all the crazy. The conclusion this year at the World Economic Forum is that people who are not at the World Economic Forum have too much free speech, too many bad ideas, too much crazy, and too much opportunity to talk. They're still talking out there. Stop them before they talk some more. So if you're getting the impression that the world's...
It had question in the description. That's why I asked. It shouldn't. I'm going to refresh and go look. Show more. 110. It says Witcher on my end. It just says Witcher. Maybe on the other one. It says Witcher. Yeah, no, they both say Witcher.
Most mediocre people and least self-aware people are all congregating in Switzerland this week. You are on to something. In fact, it might be worth getting an attendee list just to make certain that not a single person who is there this week...
That guy screams, I'm a potato? Well, hit the $19.99 and find out what else he screams.
...ever has power over you in any way. If one of these people shows up supervising the bake sale at your kid's school, call the police. They're not qualified. So with that in mind, it was interesting to see Florida Congresswoman Maria Salazar there. Maria Salazar hasn't been in Congress very long, but she has spent her time laser-focused on helping foreign nationals come to this country illegally. Her own constituents, no concern. People in other countries coming here to go on welfare, oh yeah. Before Maria Salazar was even inaugurated, she posted a video on Twitter promising Nicaraguans and Hondurans in Central America that she would, quote, be there for them, to, quote, help and assist in, quote, everything the American government can do for them. Not what they might do for our country as new immigrants, how they might build the country, make it better, unite it, make it more prosperous, peaceful. No. What the American government can do for people, the American government owes nothing to who are breaking laws the American government passed. That's Maria Salazar. She's in Davos this week, of course. And during her time in Davos, it goes without saying, She demanded amnesty for tens of millions of foreign nationals living in our country illegally. Watch.
We need to also give dignity to those people who are in the country. And those are the people that I represent. We're talking about 13, 15 million people who are.
Okay, I thought it was 11 million. Now we're saying 13 to 50 million? Huh.
Are most of them Hispanics, I would say 85%, who speak my language, look like me, and sound like me, that are contributing with the economy of this country, and they live in the shadows. So it's time to seal the border, like she said, put order, let's see who comes in and who doesn't, and then turn around and give dignity. That doesn't mean path to citizenship. That means to include them and make them dignified members of our community.
These people who look like me.
They need to be citizens. You need to pay taxes if you're going to live off the system, you fucking leech.
Don't you love it when white people pretend that the people streaming across our border look like me? Sorry, Maria Salazar, you are whiter than I am. So,
I mean, that's a fact.
Knock it off. It's false. And by the way, you don't represent foreign nationals in the United States here legally. You represent Americans because you're a representative of the American government. Donald Trump went to the Economic Forum in Davos some years ago and made it really clear that he represents, as the American president, Americans, not people from foreign countries living in the United States illegally. Now,
and they threw eggs at him and derided him for the like ratio.
Person who claims to be in.
And then they said it's only 20% of the goal. If you want to get a horsecock or a song, depending on who pushes us over the goal. We could do a horsecock, or we can do a song if we meet the goal.
His party is making exactly the opposite claim. Maria Salazar's been. So the open borders crisis is not just affecting Texas and Arizona and California. 2 weeks ago, hundreds of migrants landed in the Florida Keys. So many arrived, they shut down a national park. There are no signs that this invasion is going to stop, so the governor of Florida,
there's some dark-looking Mexicans, jeez.
Ron DeSantis, has just activated the Florida National Guard. He's also announced he's considering another major step to secure this country's borders, or at least his state's borders. He says he's weighing a ban to prevent China from purchasing real estate in Florida. Governor.
That is I see people in the chat going, horse peeing. No, you gotta, it's whoever, if we get to the goal, it's whoever pushes us over the goal gets to pick what they want.
Ron DeSantis of Florida joins us now to explain. Governor, thanks so much for coming on. So you're activating the National Guard. What will they do?
So they've been heavy in this ever since we activated Tucker over the last week to 10 days. Basically, Biden is leaving the Coast Guard out to dry. He's not sending any more vessels, any more support. They don't have enough to intercept all the boats that are trying to come primarily from Cuba, but also from Haiti. So what we're doing with our assets, we're out there in the Florida Straits. We're using reconnaissance. We are alerting to the Coast Guard when boats are there. We're stopping boats, and then the Coast Guard are picking these folks up. And here's the thing, Tucker, we think that some of this is absolutely being orchestrated by the Cuban government. We think there's a lot of human smuggling going on. So not only is this not good for the Florida Keys to have people dumped on their property.
Nobody wants to deal with this.
Some of these people that are on these boats are being mistreated. And so I think we've seen a decline in the number of vessels that are in the water. We have not had as many landings, actually very few lately. So it is working as a deterrent, but it's our sense that they're going to start trying to change their tactics. So we're going to be watching, and we're going to be responding in kind.
The fact that you're willing to do this is itself a deterrent to smugglers, of course. So one of the challenges in Florida is so many people have moved here that real estate prices have gotten really high. Foreign countries, China specifically, buying up more real estate doesn't help any American. This is happening in other states as well. What is your idea for dealing with this?
We want no CCP land purchase.
And kudos to Canada. They figured that shit out quickly. They weren't having any of that.
And obviously, they're not going
to. Who has a shitty day at chat? What?
do it directly. They will have shell companies. Right. So we're going to have a system in place to scrutinize this. But why would we want them buying farmland? They had very little farmland in the United States even 10 years ago. Now they have significant holdings. Not as much in Florida, but you do have it in other parts of the country. Why would we want the CCP to own land near a military base or own critical infrastructure? Right. So we're looking for a flat ban, and so we're going to work with the Florida legislature to get that done. Tucker, American policymakers for a generation have been empowering the CCP. They said it would end up working out. China would become a democracy. In fact, this is a very serious threat to our country.
This is a very serious threat. Full stop. I don't know why. I mean, I know why. It's for money. That's the only reason, is for money. It's always just for money. But I don't know why we are okay with things like China buying up our farmland. Do you think we'd be able to go buy farmland in China? Absolutely the fuck not.
Why would we want them to have even more influence over American society than they already do?
So very short question, Governor. These two things, using the National Guard to protect the borders and preventing a hostile foreign nation from buying up farmland, these are things a lot of other states can be doing but aren't doing. Were they hard for you to do? Is this super hard?
Well, the National Guard we control. I mean, we're putting resources. We have a big budget surplus, Tucker, so we can do that, and people are very happy. We're taking care of the vessels that are landing. Otherwise, the homeowners would have to pay $2,500 a pop. So we're stepping in where the federal government's failing. I think more states can do it, Tucker, but honestly, we should not have to be doing this. The federal government should be taking care of the immigration issue, and they should be taking...
And we all know why they aren't.
...taking care of the CCP issue. With this administration, we know neither of those two things are going to happen.
We're grateful you're doing it. Thank you, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Appreciate it. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens. I've seen this video.
These are things that are the basic function of the federal government. The stuff that we pay our tax money for, so these things can be done. If they are not doing the things that we pay them for, why are we paying them increasing amounts of taxes? If somebody could explain that, I would be all ears.
Online, it is everywhere. Recently, the Oxford Union, the debating society in Oxford, England, held a debate on wokeness. And from out of nowhere, a podcast host and comedian called Konstantin Kisin defied the odds and won over the audience on a college campus with force and brilliance. And if you're wondering how he did it, here's how.
This country is responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, which means that if Britain was to sink into the sea right now, it would make absolutely no difference to the issue of climate change. You know why? Because the future of the climate is going to be decided in Asia and in Latin America by poor people who couldn't give a about saving the planet. 120 million people in China do not have enough food.
I have to worry about buying eggs. I have to worry about getting milk for my kids and my mom. What I'm not worried about is offending John Stupid Kerry.
I don't mean that they don't get dessert. I mean they suffer from malnutrition. That means that their immune system is breaking down because they don't have enough food. You're not going to get them to stay poor. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. We know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours.
Daily reminder to change your bong water. Ooh. Oh. God damn. Luna coming in for the big 5 hundo and becoming the new stream boss in one fell swoop. Bang, bang. Look at that. Luna. On behalf of the Slurpy King, Shiru Gospel, welcome to the McKinley Club. Have a better day. Oh. Shiru, are you having a bad day? Sir. Now you must have a better one. Luna and Shiru, you both need to reach out to me ASAP so you can get your McKinley Club package in the mail. And guys, give it up for Luna. Do you want the horse cock or do you want a song at the end? What do you want, sir? What do you want? I have to think up a new goal now, but you have to let me know. Let me know. Guys, give it up. Give it up for Luna and give it up for Shiru. Unbelievable. Was that Rogan fighting a bear? No. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin. Was that Rogan fighting a bear? Oh my God. Was that Rogan fighting a bear? I'm so upset with that. Unbelievable. Luna, absolutely unbelievable work. Thank you so thank you so much.
To forget about that.
You'll notice if you watch that video that he's not
Luna, you're making me terrible. Aw. Leave it to them. All right, Shiru, it's up to you, man.
reading that. There's no teleprompter. He's ad-libbing that whole thing. That is right off the top of his head. That's not easy. Konstantin Kisin is the co-host of the Trigonometry podcast. He joins us tonight. Sure appreciate your coming on. I think the video of your remarks at the Oxford Union has been shared more than anything on social media in the U.S. in a long time. How was the response to what you said?
It was great. I think people really enjoyed it, and I think it's partly because people are fed up of wokeness, as of course you know. But I think also there's another thing going on, Tucker. We live in a society in which adults are afraid of children, and young people in particular.
I got, my kid went to, it was the little school shopping thing, and he brought me back a pen. And the pen says something like, Dad hits it out of the park. It's a super nice gift. Super nice gift. And I just try to use it to write down Shiru Gospel on my list. And it didn't work. And my first thought was, fucking course it doesn't. It's a gift from a 9-year-old. Is that bad?
And so when you see somebody who is an adult talking to young people and being straight with them and saying, look, if you care about certain issues in the world, if you care about climate change or racial injustice or whatever, whining and complaining is not going to fix that problem. That we need young people to step up and actually work and build and create things. And as I said in the speech, to create the technology and the science that is going to help solve all the problems of the future.
He said he wants the horse peen. Okay, let's get the horse peen. Sound pad. I mean, we haven't had this in a long time. We really haven't had this in a long time. Hold up.
Welcome to the end of your life, and I promise it's going to hurt.
All right, we'll get that in one moment.
Cause there is no cock like horse cock. Send your ass into shiny horse cock. The horse cock. Grab the loop and slam the day away. As I take more cock, horse cock. Shut the door and turn the lock. Is your cock a horse cock? You will never hear me say nay.
Man, that's been a long time. That's been a very long time. Thank you, Luna, and thank you, Shiru. Absolutely amazing.
So I think that's one of the reasons it's gone so viral, and the feedback has been incredible. I really haven't received any negative feedback at all. It's been very, very positive, so I'm very grateful for that.
Well, we're grateful to see it because, I mean, first of all, you made a rational, fact-based case, which is always assuring to see. It's wonderful to see someone making an argument, and you did. But it's the first time in a long time I've seen somebody directly challenge the prevailing view on campus and not get shouted down. How did that happen?
Well, as you say, I think I made a rational argument, and I think this is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot. You know, we spoke a few years ago, and as a comedian, I was concerned about the erosion of free speech and the censorship,
Yes.
particularly in this country, in the UK. But as we've interviewed people in trigonometry, as we've spoken to some of the greatest minds, you know, the Jordan Petersons of the world and many others, what I've started to realize is that this ideology, wokeness, is fundamentally anti-human. And the narrative goes something like this, you know, we are evil, particularly Westerners, especially, you know, straight white men like you, but actually all of us are evil and we must be punished. And that's why some of the solutions that we're being offered to the issue of climate change don't seem to make much sense. I don't really see how making pensioners in Britain freeze to death over the winter is going to solve the problem of climate change, or indeed impoverishing people in India and China.
Well, that's the neat part, is it doesn't, and they're not trying to fix it. They're trying to fundraise off of it. That's it. That's all it is. Mad Cat for the Big 20. Well, take a big bang to the face, Luna. The support from my work family and my mom's... What? The support from my work family and my mom's sister has been amazing in more ways than one. It feels like a spirit bomb in my heart, so nice. Yeah, Mad Cat, I know you've been going through it, man. Hope everything gets better, buddy. I'll send it to your DMs. Perfect. Thank you. Luna, you have to as well, because you did it before.
And I think, actually, we've got to believe that young people are persuadable. We've got to make rational arguments to them. And that is, I think, the way to deal with many of these problems. We've got to challenge young people to step up and be better.
We have to believe that young people are persuadable. And I think a lot of us in the elderly...
The hell was I? Oh, right. Yeah, that's good. Bang, yeet the tax leeches, and bang. Perfect.
Community or near elderly are losing confidence in that. But you believe it to be true, having just had this experience.
I do, and I think we all have to embrace that approach. I think we're not going to get anywhere by chastising people. We have to try and persuade them. I think that we've got to remember, Tucker, they're young minds. We were all young once, and we were just as idiotic and stubborn and so sure of ourselves that we thought we knew everything. I think we got to fight. We got to fight to change people's minds, and the way to do that is with rational argument and encouraging critical thinking, which is what I hope my speech has done.
Yes, I remember as a young man, I was very impressed by and persuaded by people who had forceful ideas they could clearly and rationally express. And I'm glad to see there's still people like that, because you did that. Konstantin Kisin, thank you so much.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly...
Viper's still on screen? Well, it's encouragement for another one.
A Fox News alert and some rare good news. The appalling Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, that's the lady with the big teeth who tormented her citizens, has just...
What? What was that name?
A Fox News alert and some rare good news. The appalling Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, that's the lady with the big teeth who tormented her citizens.
The lady with the big teeth.
Citizens has just announced she is leaving office. Here she was moments ago.
Announcing that I will not be seeking re-election and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February.
I wonder why these people are all stepping down. Interesting, huh?
Most authoritarian leader that country has...
The push-ups are going to suck. I wasn't able to get to the gym yesterday, so do some extra for me. I'm going to hit chest day tomorrow. It's going to be chest and leg day, which is super fun. I did back day today, and it was the different types of rows, and I have not been able to stand up straight all damn day long.
Ever had, and no one else comes close, an appalling abuser of human rights of her own people.
Those teeth look like they belong to the animal that just humped a viper.
She, of course, earned the admiration of Western leaders, including former CIA Director Michael Hayden, by ushering in an era of near totalitarianism in New Zealand. She shut down the entire country over a single COVID case. She told everyone to stay in their bubbles. She told citizens to inform on their neighbors by calling the police if they saw them outside. I'm not making this up, by the way. We kept a video record. Here's some of it.
Stay local and do not congregate. Don't talk to your neighbours. Please keep to your bubbles. It comes down again to those very simple principles. We know from overseas cases of the Delta variant that it can be spread by people simply walking past one another. So,
oh, just being near people. You just being near people.
Keep those movements outside to the bare minimum.
If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep...
That this, well, not her, but definitely partly her, is the reason I have been able to tell the difference between an Australian and a Kiwi accent, a New Zealand accent. Because Australian, they add a lot of Oz to everything. Nar. And New Zealander add a lot of E's to everything. Nay.
Staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in the facility longer. It
is a hungry fucking whore.
Because you're hungry.
The lady announced her resignation the same day the USDA announced that they were going to have hay shortages this year. The U.S. just couldn't feed its pet. Oh, thank you.
So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test.
You can now see family and friends.
The teast, the egs, the teast, the turst. You get my point.
Again in their homes and use the bathroom inside. Luxury.
What are the chances she was a puppet of the Chinese government? We don't have enough evidence to prove that, but we would rate that as about 100% likely. Fortunately, there is a tiny shred of democracy left in New Zealand. Ardern's party was becoming very unpopular, so before she could lose, she's quitting.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here
and you're all annoying. Go
Good
fuck
evening
yourselves.
and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. If you're a normal person, it's a pretty weird experience watching Joe Biden's presidency.
Don't you dare say I'm normal.
Get euthanized by his own party. On one hand, there's an undeniable thrill to it. You have to admit that. Biden is the most destructive president in American history. More things have broken under his watch than under any other president. Joe Biden deserves to be driven from office and disgraced. But for this, breaking federal classification rules, some of the stupidest and most dishonest laws Congress has ever passed, it's like arresting El Chapo for expired plates. It's missing the point. But it looks like that's what's going to happen. It seems like every day one of Biden's lawyers shows up with more sheaves of classified documents, like a dog who's found another dead chipmunk under the house. This bunch was in his office at Penn, the one paid for by the Communist Party of China. These were found next to his sad little midlife crisis sports car in a garage in Delaware, and so on. You keep waiting for the White House physician to announce another document trove has been discovered after a routine colonoscopy. It could happen because at this point,
I gotta hear that line one more time. Holy shit.
And so on. You keep waiting for the White House physician to announce another document trove has been discovered after a routine colonoscopy.
It is coming. I feel it. I think that the media just won't respond or won't report on it when there are more documents found, I should say.
It could happen because at this point, you know exactly where this story is heading. Permanent Washington does not want Joe Biden to run for president again. This is how they're sending that message. Even CNN has decided to become interested in Joe Biden's misdeeds 2 years into his presidency. They're doing segments on how classification laws protect this country from its mortal enemies like Russia. So you know for certain the order has gone out. Biden is done. What a missed opportunity this is. If you're looking for crimes that Joe Biden has committed, there is a very long list. Our country is being invaded. The world is on the brink of nuclear war. American cities have become slums. Our economy is in shambles. Even our airplanes no longer take off on time. It's a disaster, and Joe Biden and his staff have a hand in all of it.
Yeah, but they're allowed to have a hand in it, and they're allowed to get away with it because it's not Orange Man, and we all know this. And why the fuck is WMI provider host eating 20% of my RAM? Shut off.
In a country with a functioning government, Joe Biden would have been impeached before the first million illegal aliens crossed over our southern border. But no one did anything to stop it. So now they're arriving at the rate of 250,000 a month. Watch.
Customs and Border Protection sources exclusively tell Fox News more than 250,000 migrants were encountered at the border in the month of December, about as many people living in Scottsdale, Arizona, making it the highest month ever on record. In Eagle Pass, Texas, the migrant surge continues. Local Kinney County rancher Pam Schott had a harrowing experience with migrants on her property.
And I looked out the back and I could see 3 illegals walking up to the house. I had gotten a gun, which is an AR-15. I asked them, I said, please, stop, go away, and had the gun in my hands, and they, just kind of looked at me and kind of smiled, and I was like, I'll tow and just go away, and they refused to do so.
They're on the other side of the glass, trying
to get in
and not backing down.
Not backing down. Even though I have a high, powerful rifle in my arms, they are not backing down.
But don't worry, guys, there's only 10 to 11 million. Not what they said earlier at the WEF. They said there's, 13 to 50? Whatever?
It was scary.
A rifle Joe Biden would like to take away from her. So that, writ large, is the biggest story of our lifetimes. It is the one thing Joe Biden has done that cannot be undone. Our great-grandchildren are going to live with the consequences of this. But you never know it from watching most of the news. There's an effective media blackout on Joe Biden's immigration policies and on their downstream effects on America. There are too many strangers pouring in at once, and as a result, the country is becoming chaotic. Here's a rare television news piece on what happened when officials in New York decided to house some of Joe Biden's illegal aliens in a local hotel.
An employee there says that migrants have made an absolute mess of the place. You're standing in front of it. Is that true?
Yeah, well, what we're hearing from that employee is that the hotel is completely overrun. He says, of course, some people just looking for that better life, but as a result, the hotel is a mess, and he fears for his safety.
We don't have any guests anymore. They sold the entire hotel from the 4th floor to the 28th floor. It's all migrants. So
they just get to live in hotels? What? I want to live in a hotel.
People who are getting drunk, using marijuana.
They're using marijuana.
Are punching and beating their wives or their girlfriends. We have teenagers running around wild around the hotel, opening the fire exit doors and doing what teenagers do in the stairways, and it's a mess.
It's a mess, he said. Of course it is. The whole country is a mess because Joe Biden has ignored immigration laws passed by the Congress.
I just want to be out of the house. I don't even want the free food and drugs. I just want to be out of the house.
That is a crime, and it has killed huge numbers of Americans, hundreds of thousands dead from narcotics.
Fentanyl has changed the entire game here in San Francisco. You can't buy heroin out here anymore. Nobody sells heroin, and nobody...
It's ruined the heroin game.
uses heroin. Everybody has transitioned over to fentanyl. Fentanyl is the most dangerous drug to ever hit the streets of the United States in history.
Fentanyl has killed more than 70,000 Americans in 12 months. Here in San Francisco, it's the dominant drug. It's responsible for 3/4 of drug overdoses. Brazen drug...
Oh! Speaking of the stream goal, Miss Sin in the chat, we're paying for those $500 a night hotels too. I am going to scream. So,
Dealing and rampant drug...
That's my tired war scream.
Drug use in the shadow of City Hall. The same City Hall residents say actively enable the fentanyl crisis.
All of it, every gram, came over an open border. So what's notable as a political matter is that every one of these disasters, the fentanyl epidemic, the chaos and crime in our cities, the invasion underway through Texas, Arizona, and California, all of those deeply concern Americans. We're not guessing at that. Polls show it very clearly. By contrast, how many voters do you think are lying awake right now worrying that public officials might violate some obscure federal classification law? None. Not a single person. No one outside Washington cares or even understands the issue. And yet, it is classified documents, not our open borders, that the Justice Department is punishing Joe Biden for. Why is that? What's going on here? Well, it's simple. Washington is protecting itself. Joe Biden alone is responsible for this crime. He alone took home classified documents. He didn't have help in doing that. But allowing the country to be invaded,
again,
that's not something you can do by yourself. So if Biden...
Again, this is a question worth asking. How did he have them?
If he were to be taken down for opening the southern border, a lot of other people would go with him. He had a lot of accomplices. Permanent Washington doesn't want that. And ultimately, and here's the point, permanent Washington is in charge. It's not the democracy you imagine. We're seeing that now. So if you want to understand, if you really want to understand how the American government actually works at the highest levels, and if you want to know why they don't teach history anymore, one thing you should know is that the most popular president in American history was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon. Yet somehow, without a single vote being cast by a single American voter, Richard Nixon was kicked out of office and replaced by the only unelected president in American history. So we went from the most popular president to a president nobody voted for. Wait a minute, you may ask. Why didn't I know that? Wasn't Richard Nixon a criminal? Wasn't he despised by all decent people? No, he wasn't. In fact, if any president could claim to be the people's choice, it was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was reelected in 1972 by the largest margin of the popular vote ever recorded before or since. Nixon got 17 million more votes than his opponent. Less than 2 years later, he was gone. He was forced to resign. And in his place, an obedient servant of the federal agencies called Gerald Ford took over the White House. How did that happen?
Again, they're all tax leeches, but that's beyond the point. I think we all need to just kind of understand that none of these people give a flying shit about us, and we need to stop simping. We will not simp for politicians. No more. No mas.
Well, it's a long story, but here are the highlights, and they tell you a lot. Richard Nixon believed that elements in the federal bureaucracy were working to undermine the American system of government and had been doing that for a long time. He often said that. He was absolutely right. On June 23, 1972, Nixon met with the then CIA Director Richard Helms at the White House. During the conversation, which thankfully was tape recorded, Nixon suggested he knew, quote, who shot John, meaning President John F. Kennedy. Nixon further implied that the CIA was directly involved in Kennedy's assassination, which we now know it was. Helms' telling response? Total silence.
Silence can be one hell of a response.
But for Nixon, it didn't matter because it was already over. 4 days before, on June 19th, the Washington Post had published the first of many stories about a break-in at the Watergate office building. Unbeknownst to Nixon and unreported by the Washington Post, 4 of the 5 burglars worked for the CIA. The first of many dishonest Watergate stories was written by a 29-year-old Metro reporter called Bob Woodward. Who exactly was Bob Woodward? Well, he wasn't a journalist. Bob Woodward had no background whatsoever in the news business. Instead, Bob Woodward came directly from the classified areas of the federal government. Shortly before Watergate, Woodward was a naval officer at the Pentagon. He had a top-secret clearance. He worked regularly with the intel agencies. At times, Woodward was even detailed to the Nixon White House, where he interacted with Richard Nixon's top aides. Soon after leaving the Navy, for reasons that have never been clear, Woodward was hired by the most powerful news outlet in Washington and assigned the biggest story in the country. And just to make it crystal clear what was actually happening, Woodward's main source for his Watergate series was the deputy director of the FBI, Mark Felt. And Mark Felt ran, and we're not making this up, the FBI's COINTELPRO program, which was designed to secretly discredit political actors the federal agencies wanted to destroy, people like Richard Nixon. And at the same time, those same agencies were also working to take down Nixon's elected vice president, Spiro Agnew. In the fall of 1973, Agnew was indicted for tax evasion and forced to resign. His replacement was a colorless congressman from Grand Rapids called Gerald Ford. What was Ford's qualification for the job? Well, he had served on the Warren Commission, which absolved the CIA of responsibility for President Kennedy's murder. Nixon was strong.
The last public opinion poll I saw showed Congress had an approval rating at about 9%. By contrast, Muammar Gaddafi had an approval rating.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And I also love a little history lesson. That's why I'm not talking too much during this. Because this stuff is important to learn or be retaught. I didn't remember most of this. God, I love that donation, though. A motherfucking worthless excrement. No, I'm sorry. Motherfucking worthless. Redacted. Shit turds deserve to. Redacted and redacted. All those aiding and abetting this bullish also deserve to be redacted. Along with the 50 redacted. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
No choice but Ford.
Just another guy. I think his favorite donation.
Ford. Speaker of the House Carl Albert later boasted. 8 months later, Gerald Ford of the Warren Commission was the president of the United States. See how that works? So those are the facts. Not speculation, all of that actually happened. None of it's secret. Most of it actually is on Wikipedia. But no mainstream news organization has ever told that story. It's so obvious, yet it's intentionally ignored. And as a result, permanent Washington remains in charge of our political system. Unelected lifers in the federal agencies make the biggest decisions in American government and crush anyone who tries to rein them in. And in the process, our democracy becomes a joke. Now, you may have noticed that the very first person in the Trump administration the agencies went after was General Michael Flynn. Why Flynn? Because Mike Flynn...
I am livid and pumped for my workout. Use that rage.
...was a career Army intel officer who ran the Defense Intelligence Agency. In other words, Mike Flynn knew exactly how the system worked, and as a result, he was capable of fighting back. 4 days after Donald Trump's inauguration, the FBI lured Mike Flynn into a meeting without his lawyer, concocted a series of fake crimes, and forced him to resign. So that's how things actually...
Conter away from making a Fed post, no. I love the fact that Conter is being put into common parlance amongst you guys. It really should. It's a great phrase.
...work in Washington. Let's stop lying about it. Joe Biden, meanwhile, whooped like a hyena when the Justice Department destroyed Mike Flynn. So there is, we have to say, a certain perverse justice in watching something very similar happen to Joe Biden himself 6 years later. Joe Biden does not deserve our sympathy. He's being shafted, but don't weep.
Welcome to the end of your life, and I promise it's going to hurt.
Let's get a jump on this one. Tucker didn't hit himself. I mean, you're probably right. You're probably right. Thank you very much, Fastonia.
Us do deserve a better system, an actual democracy.
I mean, we do, but we're not going to get it anytime soon. We deserve it, though.
It's going to be interesting. Stu Brumba is an actor, Key Grip, and owner of Sparta Grip. He joins us tonight. Stu, thanks so much for coming on. So you've seen this. I mean, the rest of us would, I guess, assume that a lot of actors who are, of course, against the Second Amendment probably don't know a lot about guns. But you're saying you have seen actors mishandle firearms.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all, Tucker. I appreciate it. Yeah, in my industry, you know, we deal with a lot of firearms scenarios. Obviously, we've got a lot
He looks like meth-addled Christian Bale.
Of Hollywood people that will vilify firearms and then end up on their TV shows and movies and glorify them in those instances. And, you know, it's just the hypocrisy of it. You know, I try and be professional on set, but you run into those instances where you've watched somebody, you know, make statements on their TV shows or their, you know, their interviews, and then you see them on the sets working, and they're, you know, trying to be, you know, using the firearms. It's just comical.
Well, it's a little weird that people who think guns are evil would be, as you said, glorifying their use, playing the tough guy, you know, pointing guns in people's faces on the set. I mean, have you ever seen an actor decline a role because it involved guns?
I'm sure the paychecks far outweigh their, you know, their feelings towards firearms.
So I guess it goes without saying that a lot of these are people who really just don't know anything about firearms.
That's correct. I mean, you see them have these conversations on the news channels and with politicians and everything else about firearms, and then you hear things. I mean, I grew up around guns. I grew up in Montana. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've been hunting my entire life, and you hear them talk about firearms, and they totally don't understand even the mechanics of them to begin with, and they're trying to make their point across of why they're so bad and evil and everything else, and honest, hardworking, citizens that, love guns, and, my guns have never harmed anybody or never been in the hands of anybody that would do harm. And, you just look at those.
Do it up. What are you using, Just Another Guy?
Scenarios, and then you kind of have to keep quiet on these movie sets and end up working with these individuals.
And not just you. I've been on lots of different sets, and there is this huge divide between the people who are getting paid the most and who are on camera, and then everybody, the army of people off camera who you never see. I would say the majority of whom don't share the politics of the people on camera. Has that been your experience?
Absolutely not. In my industry, there's always the.
They have no true convictions. They're paid to have a side. Yeah, that's completely accurate.
The conversations behind the camera, and I think a lot of people probably feel very similar to the way that I feel when it comes to these issues. But of course we're not making the $10 million paycheck, so we're just there to do our job and do it to the best of our ability.
Well, I for one wish you were making the $10 million paycheck.
I do too.
Stu, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Shouldn't actors be working with blanks? Blanks can still fuck you up. That's how Jet Li, the Crow guy, the guy from The Crow, died.
Of illegal aliens streaming across our border has just hit a new all-time record. Never before have we seen anything like this. More than 250,000 foreign nationals were stopped last month alone. So that's an invasion. There's no other word for it. It's having an effect on every part of American life. It's having an effect on farmers. Alex Mueller is a farmer in Yuma, Arizona, the president of the Pasquinelli Produce Company. He joins us tonight to tell us what he has firsthand been experiencing. Alex, thanks so much.
Brandon Lee, geez, thank you.
For coming on. So we don't hear often enough from people in border states about what it looks like to them. What's your experience been?
Well, hello, Tucker. No, thanks for having me. It's over the last 2 years, it's just been a death by 1,000 cuts. It's been a slow trickle, and we're seeing it every day. We're right. This is the end of the border here, and we have a field of lettuce here, and the community here has seen an uptick in crossers, and it's just been continuous and continuous, and it's taxing, and it's hard for us to do our job.
Yeah,
we take.
I almost said fetus fields. The lettuce fields where they're pooping and giving everyone E. coli.
Food safety as at the utmost for what we do, and anytime anybody enters our field, we have to cordon that off and flag it, and we don't harvest that area. Just like if a coyote enters our field, we can't harvest that area. So when there's 20 people, 30 people, but sometimes there's 100 out there, about a quarter mile down, mostly they cross, but there's gaps along the wall that they're crossing over, and it's an additional aspect of our job that is sort of out of our wheelhouse.
Well, you shouldn't have to contend with border security. You're a lettuce farmer. The state and the federal government should be doing that for you. That's their main job. That's why they exist. Are they? And why aren't they? Apparently they're not.
Well, no, they're not, and we live in a border community, and the Border Patrol are our friends, and the Border Patrol are glorified
babysitters,
travel agency now, and people cross down here a quarter mile, and Border Patrol comes down and they put people in buses, they take them to a tent city where the Border Patrol station is. There's probably 5,000 people there at any given time, and they're giving them bus passes or airplane tickets, and they're flying all over the country. And it's it's been insane to watch for the last 2 years, and it's something that we need help down here, and we want to bring light to this situation.
Of course. You're so meticulous in your job that you just told us if a coyote crosses into your field, you will not sell the produce the coyote touched. So how does it feel to...
We don't sell the produce and...
Right, but so here's the government abetting crime. The people who are supposed to be stopping the crime are making it possible, rewarding the crime with free airline tickets. As an American, how does that feel?
Well, at a time, you know, we're coming out of the pandemic and at a time when all of costs across the board are up. Our freight costs are up double. Fuel costs are up 30%.
30% is not accurate. Why do we keep saying 30%?
Input costs are up 30%. It's an additional cost that it gets sent down to the end user, the American public, and we're very proud of what we do. My wife's family has been farming here for 75 years, and we're one of the young guys on the block. And we're proud of this. We're proud of what we provide to the American people. And this has been going on for 2 years. It's not stopping. I mean, I could tell you anecdotally a couple stories where a Border Patrol agent friend of mine saw somebody crossing that had 2 people crossing with him that he was paying to carry his Louis Vuitton luggage. And then on the same hand, I've seen a little girl crossing that was a 5-year-old with a phone number pinned to her chest, and she was alone. I saw that with my own eyes. And it's been going on for 2 years. And we need help down here. It's not something that it's in our wheelhouse. It's not something the city of Yuma needs to deal with.
Of course
But
not.
yeah, we'd like to get some help.
I hope you get it. This is an atrocity, such an expression of deep disrespect for our nation.
Thank you.
Alex Mueller, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Fox.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson's and happy Friday. Do you remember when you first heard about the Chinese government's one-child policy? It sounded so foreign, so crazy, so grotesque. Here, the Communist Party was deciding how many children people were allowed to have. There was state monitoring of pregnancy, there was forced sterilization, there was infanticide at scale. To the Western mind, the whole thing was repugnant and alien. But maybe the most un-American thing about the Chinese one-child policy was the policy itself.
I mean, it is kind of draconian.
The idea that government could insert itself into the most intimate details of your private life struck most Americans at a gut level as incomprehensible. The whole point of America was to avoid plans like that. The whole point of America was personal freedom. That's why the country was founded. What you do in private, on your own time, with your own money, within the boundaries of the law, was your own business and nobody else's business. It was a foundational point, and on that question, there appeared to be, thank God, bipartisan agreement. Conservatives believed in the Bill of Rights. Liberals believed in personal choice. My body, my choice, they said. Government out of our personal lives. They said that for decades. Now we know they didn't mean it. Turns out that liberals were very eager to intrude as deeply as possible into people's personal lives.
Again, it's this is a long video. Okay, we'll come back to this one. That one's 20-something minutes, so we'll come back to that. This will be our last one, and we'll save the rest for Thursday, Tucker Thursday over on Twitch. I'm gonna do my best to make that a ongoing thing. Actually, I think that'd be good.
York Arnu runs a blog covering the U.S. military base in Nevada, long known as Area 51. The website is dreamlandresort.com. Arnu has written extensively on his blog about Area 51's connection to government black projects. In November, Arnu's 2 homes in Rachel and in Las Vegas were raided by more than a dozen armed agents from the FBI and the Air Force's Counterintelligence Division.
Now, why would they be raiding a private citizen's house who just has a website about Area 51 if they were not onto something?
Arnu told us that the search related to images he posted on his website. York Arnu is an expert, as we said, in Area 51, and we're happy to have him join us tonight. York, thanks so much for coming on. So given that we have freedom of the press in this country and you're allowed to report on whatever you want, what was the pretext for the government coming to your house with guns?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Of course.
I believe the reason for this search was that supposedly I took photos of Area 51, or I published photos of Area 51 on my website, which is something I have done for 20 years without anyone really taking issue with that. And all of a sudden, this thing comes out of the blue, crashing down on my homes. I really still don't have an explanation. I can't get a hold of anyone. 3 doors were kicked in.
Yeah.
Country gate was busted. My girlfriend was dragged out of the house in Las Vegas. I was dragged out of the house in Rachel, and nobody can give us any answers.
So when you came,
So they raided his house and didn't tell him?
came to this country, I don't know where you're originally from, but I can see that you're an immigrant to this country. Did you imagine that people with guns could just show up at your house, take things from your home, physically manhandle you, and you'd never get answers as to why they were doing it?
Absolutely not. I would have never expected this. If you would have told me 3 months ago that this could happen, I would have said absolutely impossible. I am really shocked that this can happen to a cooperating, innocent senior citizen who is really just wanting for, looking for a peaceful retirement, and who
I mean, it's worth wondering about, I think.
has a little hobby on the side to run a blog about Area 51. That's all I'm doing. Part of what I'm doing on my website is actually telling people how to stay out of trouble. There's directions on the website so that people know where they can go and where they cannot go. So in fact, I'm trying to kind of help the government, keep the loonies out of there. When we had this crazy Storm Area 51 event, I spoke up against it. I was all.
Was that a serious thing? Like, were people really gonna storm Area 51? Did they think that they would just let them?
For the government, we are not, the group around my website is not about exposing any secrets. We want to spread the word about how fascinating the military aviation is, the world of black projects, and we try to get a glimpse of what's going on. That is fascinating for us. We are not out to sell our stuff to the Russians or to the Chinese or to whoever.
I mean, we certainly seem fine selling stuff to the Chinese.
That's not us. That's not me. And yes, I am totally shocked that this can happen. To some degree, I have lost a little bit of faith in the justice system in this country.
Oh, a little bit? Oh, just give it some time, buddy. You'll lose the rest.
And I would really like to know who is behind this.
Yeah, you would. Most people who intersect with the justice system lose faith in it fairly quickly. Last quick question. Have you been charged with anything?
I have not been charged with anything. I cannot get a hold of anyone at the FBI. I have actually hired a lawyer who similarly cannot get a hold of anyone at the FBI. The only reaction I got was when I filed to be reimbursed for the damages to my homes. I very quickly got it denied. That was all I got.
So these people can not only just come to your house and fuck it up at will, they can get away with it without paying damages. That's great.
And I would like to get my property back, $25,000 in damages and my property that was seized. I have about $6,000 in legal damages. So I've actually started a GoFundMe page. And if anyone is so inclined, I would appreciate some help.
This motherfucker's stealing my gimmick.
The link is on my website. I don't know what's going on. I want to know what's going on, but nobody's talking to me.
I don't think, I'm not an attorney, but I don't think the FBI is allowed to trash your house and steal things from you without charging you with the crime. So I certainly hope you prevail. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Yorgo Nu.
Thank you very much.
Subscribe to the Fox.
Interesting. But guys, that's it. We'll cut it off there. We will be back tomorrow for the AAA meeting on Polly's channel. And then we will finish up because we got a little bit of Tucker left, enough to do a good show. We'll do that Thursday right here. I don't know the time. I want to say 5:30. Maybe later. I don't know. 5:30 or 7. Guys, thank you for coming and hanging out. Thank you for the incredible donations tonight. Luna, Shiru, looking at you guys. Have a lovely evening. Make sure you reach out to me, and we'll see you all in